the mining sector generally, but the small-scale mining sector in particular. But that said, we have put in place considerable measures, and we are making some progress, albeit incrementally, and also recognizing that we still have some challenges. But the fact remains that the culture of impunity, which had gripped the mining sector over the years, from 2016 when the governance architecture broke down and when illegal mining was so much on the ascendancy to the point where AngloGold Ashanti had to be closed down because of invasion by illegal miners, all the way to this time, through the two-pronged approach of reformation being generally reforming the legal, policy and operational framework for the small-scale mining sector, and the enforcement mechanism, the use of Operation Hall, the military, the decommissioning and demobilization of equipment used for illegal small-scale mining, for example, excavators and the rest. Through this two-pronged approach, I will say that we are not out of the woods yet. There's considerable work yet to be done, particularly when it comes to prosecution and when it comes to convicting these illegal miners to serve as a deterrent. We are very much on top of the situation, and on a daily basis, we launch operations upon operations. And I mean, last week, for example, there was a clash between Forestry Commission guards and illegal miners in a particular forest reserve. And unfortunately, we lost 2 lives. This matter is still being investigated. But the point I seek to make is that we have not relented, not even for a second, on our fight against illegal small-scale mining. It's work in progress, and if you check anywhere in the world, whether it's in Australia or Canada or South Africa or wherever, where you have a mining industry, they continue to grapple with the issues of illegalities. And what is important is our steadfastness, is our commitment, and above all, I should say, our integrity and transparency, and we are doing just that.
And it is the integrity and transparency that I'm going to stay with, because there are many who have asked questions about whether government really is sincerely committed to fighting illegal mining, especially because of some of the decisions that have been taken. For instance, the laws that have been passed over the period, the CSOs have raised concerns about
laws that have been passed on what?
Or specifically to ensure that even forest reserves can't be mined. The CSOs have raised concerns about LI 2462, which was approved by the House. Now, and that gives mining companies access to even forest reserves. So what was the intent in passing LI 12462 when you have committed to preserving forest reserves in this country?
The LI you referred to was sponsored by the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology. And the jury is out there to determine the appropriateness or otherwise of this particular LI. And I will not make too much comment on that. But it is not correct that there is an LI which permits indiscriminate mining in forest reserves. That is not correct.
At least
no, it's not. It's not correct.
Hold on. A number of things happening as a result of that.
It's not correct that there is an LI which permits indiscriminate mining in forest reserves. That is
at least previously there was an LI that permitted just about 2% of forest reserves to be mined. But now that has been set aside and this LI is in place.
I'm saying it's not correct because an LI is subsidiary legislation and therefore is subservient to an Act of Parliament. And the Act of Parliament which regulates mining, i.e. Act 703, which is the Minerals and Mining Act 206, Act 703, and the enabling law for the Forestry Commission, the enabling law for the Environmental Protection Agency, will not and cannot allow indiscriminate mining in forest reserves and will take precedence over an LI. But having said that, I mean, it's also important for us to face some of the realities of our legal regime when it comes to mining. It is not, mining in forest reserve is not prescribed by law. I mean, I'm not saying it, that's what the law says. Mining is permitted in forest reserve, but under strict conditions and strict environmental protocols. I'll give you an example. Newmont Ghana, which is the biggest mining company in the world, and is the biggest mining company in Ghana, mines in a forest reserve. And Newmont got their concession about 20, 30 years ago. What it is that small-scale mining is not permitted in forest reserves. That has been our biggest problem permitting small-scale mining in forest reserves. Small-scale mining is not permitted in forest reserves. Secondly, even when large-scale mining operations are permitted in forest reserves, they are supposed to be done within a certain strict environmental protocol. And many a times we have difficulty and challenges with that. Now, the Forest Commission has been very strict on mining activities, whether large-scale or small-scale mining activities in forest. And as I just give you an example, just about a week ago, I'm dealing with a situation where forest guards had to go and flush out illegal miners in a particular forest reserve, and it resulted in the killing of 2 Ghanaians, 2 illegal small-scale miners. Now, what we have tried to do is to cordon off the 274 or so odd forest reserves of our country. And by and large, I am happy to say that that effort is yielding some results. First of all, we've put a strict regime on the grant of entry permits in our forest reserve, entry permits of any sort into our forest reserve. Whereas in the past, there was an indiscriminate grant of forest entry permits. Now it's become the exception rather than the norm. But it's also important, my friend, for us to point out that it's not all the information that is put out there which is correct, which is sacrosanct. Let me give you an example. There's been this brouhaha about Kakum Forest Reserve.
Coming to that. How did the High Street Limited even have the thought to apply for a mining or prospecting license in the Kakum National Park? How? What happened?
You know, I have had to laugh a bit because a question like this, what is the answer I'm supposed to give? How do you determine who makes an application?
Hold on. This is a national park, and you're saying that your Forestry Commission has been very strict in ensuring that forest reserves are preserved. This is a national asset.
No, hold on.
Kakum National Park.
No, it doesn't take away the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that how do I determine that Mr. Jinapor don't go and apply for a forest, a mining lease in Kakum National Park or Moli National Park? Or how do I determine that Kofi Mensah should not apply for a mining lease in Moli National Park? Or what is of significance is what does the, hold on, let me answer your question. What does the authorities make of that application? If the authorities consider the application or grant the application, then we can be up in arms, then we can be worried, then we can be scandalized. In this particular case, when this high street company made the application was rejected ab initio at the point of lodging the application at the Minerals Commission. And therefore, the application did not even find its way to my desk, who is the minister who has a final final authority to grant or disallow an application of that nature. And so when the matter broke out, when my attention was drawn to it, I had to contact the CEO of the Minerals Commission. That what is this report I'm receiving that mining is taking place in Kakum National Park? And his response was that, Minister, you are not aware of this particular situation because this application was rejected from the very get-go, ab initio. And yet you have headlines, Kakum National Park under threat, Kakum National Park being mined, Kakum National Park being attacked by a mining company. When the application that is supposed to be the subject matter of this so-called scandal was rejected at the very moment of it being lodged or at the moment of the application being put before the Minerals Commission. And we are not... So what would be the source of the concern?
So the source of the concern here is this. We've seen what's happening in the Upper Prama forest. That's a forest reserve. In the Etiwa forest. I have been in the Etiwa forest for 2 days doing a documentary on how illegal mining is destroying the forest cover there. We approached certain companies who said they have been given mining licenses to mine in the Etiwa forest. And there are other forest reserves. In fact, we got copies of 47 entry permits that have been given by the Forestry Commission for companies to get into 47 forest reserves across the country to do prospecting. So if you see this consistent disregard for the preservation of forest reserve, then the company would then have the confidence to even want to put an application to get a license to mine in the Kakum National Park. That's what I'm saying, that if there's been a consistent, committed, sincere decision to ensure the preservation of forest reserves, a company would not even think of even putting in an application, even if there is gold in the forest reserve or in the national park. That's where my concern is.
So first of all, I cannot, with the greatest of respect and in all humility and modesty, gauge companies' confidence or otherwise. What is of consequence to me as the minister responsible for lands and natural resources is that what is made of that application. The High Street application for a mining lease in Kakum National Park was rejected. And for me, that is highly commendable. The Minerals Commission did such a good job in rejecting the application from the very get-go and not even allowing the application to progress to the level of the minister for the minister to make a determination of that application. And that should be seen as a commitment by the government to preserve our forest reserves, Kakum National Park inclusive. So that is point number one. Point number two, in 2021, I issued a directive for all prospecting to cease in forest reserves. So they cannot be prospecting in a forest reserve.
So as we speak, there's no prospecting going on in any forest reserve.
Hold on. I'm saying that in 2021, I issued a ministerial directive that all prospecting in forest reserves are outlawed. So you cannot have a situation of prospecting in a forest reserve. So if anybody were to claim to be prospecting in a forest reserve, the person will be engaged in illegal mining or illegal activity. So the suggestion that there are so many people, so many companies prospecting in so many forest reserves cannot be correct. If anybody, purports to be prospecting in a forest reserve, that action is an illegality and has to be dealt with. And if that was brought to my attention, that obviously will be dealt with. So the question of prospecting in forest reserve had been conclusively dealt with as far back as 2021. The reasons why we put a stop on prospecting in forest reserve, it's obvious to you and I, and it's obvious to everybody, that in the past, people came for prospecting licenses which had a lower standard of environmental protocols and ended up using the prospecting licenses to mine. And when you confronted them, they said they have a license, but yet it was a prospecting license. So we banned prospecting in forest reserves. Thirdly, the 47, so-called 47 forest entry permits, I'll be happy to see them.
I'll be happy to make them available.
I'll be happy to see this so-called 47 forest entry permits for mining, because it will be, I'll find it completely strange to have 47 forest entry permits for mining in forest reserves. Because first of all, as I indicated to you, small-scale mining is not permitted in forest reserves. Small-scale mining is not permitted in forest reserves. So if you have any mining in a forest reserve, it must be a large-scale mining. And it must be with a forest entry permit, environmental EPA permit. It must have the strictest of environmental protocols. I want to just conclude by saying that, look, this is a difficult fight, and I have no illusions about that. We always knew that we were going to run into a lot of challenges. We knew it was going to be a long fight. We knew it was going to be complicated. But the determination to get on with the fight has never been challenged, have never been lost on us in any form or shape. And indeed and in fact, I believe that we are making some progress. And the measures we put in place, if we keep at it and we are steadfast for a certain period of time, we will see much more.
This directive that you gave for the entry permits to cease in forest reserve in 2021, did it take retrospective effect? Because of the intention of the...
Absolutely.
It took
retrospective effect. It took retrospective effect. It was a complete ban on prospecting in forest reserve. So if you had a prospecting license before that directive was given, you were not allowed into a forest reserve. And as a matter of fact, we do not grant prospecting licenses for forest reserve to date. We don't.
So you can say to the cameras that there's no prospecting going on in forest reserves.
I don't have to say anything. I don't have to say anything to the camera. It's the facts I'm giving you. This is the truth. The truth of the matter is that if there's any prospecting happening in a forest reserve, it's an illegality because we ban prospecting. The only prospecting license which has been granted for the mining of bauxite, not gold, is Rockshore in the Tiwa forest, in Jinapor. Not Tiwa, in the Jinapor, but that may not even be a forest reserve, so it doesn't even come up. But the prospecting which is being granted for prospecting to take place in respect of bauxite resources is what was granted for Rockshore under the integrated aluminium framework. But the fact remains, and that is the fact, is as far back as 2021. I'm surprised you are not aware of that.
You are not. I am. I'm asking specific questions about what exactly is the impact of this, because you are saying that there is no prospecting going on. So I just wanted you to be on record that it is indeed the case that if we get any news that there is prospecting going on in any forest reserve, it is illegal. And it's not coming from you. And you are not supporting it in any way.
No, for Moshe, it cannot come from me. We gave that directive for good measure. And these are not some populist, if you want, high-standing policy measures. These are measures which are necessary. If we ever got to a point where we're satisfied as a country and as a government that we could allow prospecting in forest reserve, we'll take that decision. But as it is today, and as it was as far back as 2021, and as I and the ministry came to that conclusion or that judgment, the issuance of prospecting licenses in forest reserves had become a major bane for the protection and preservation of the forest reserves of our country. And we took that decision, and I made that announcement public, and we stuck to that up to date, that we are not permitting prospecting in forest reserves.
No, or any form of mining. Forest reserves should be preserved.
Or any form of
mining. Forest reserves should be preserved, off limit to any mining activity.
Forest reserves should be preserved, but large-scale mining is permitted in forest reserves, as it is for Newmont. So I can tell you that mining cannot take place in forest reserve, or mining is not taking place in forest, because Newmont is mining in a forest reserve today. Except that mining in a forest reserve comes with a much more stringent environmental protocol. So if we want to ban mining in forest reserve, we have to come back to this house and amend the law. It's not my law, it's not my decision. The law allows mining in a forest, except that it must be large-scale mining, not small-scale, except that the environmental regime is much more stringent, except that you must have an EPA permit which should monitor your activities closely, except that you must have a much more robust reclamation and revegetation regime, so that whatever mining that takes place, you then have to reclaim the land, you have to revegetate the land, and so on and so forth. So these are the measures.
Now, is it the LI 2462, even though it is not your ministry's law, because you indicated that it is the Environment, Science, Technology Ministry that brought it to Parliament for it to be approved. Concerns about it. Does that impact on your ministry's resolve to preserve forest reserves? Because that's the CSO's concern, that this, in essence, is threatening your fight.
On top of my head, I won't express a definite view on this LI, but I'm not particularly concerned, because the substantive legislation and substantive laws relating to mining will not permit the inference you are drawing from this LI, which is that the LI permits mining in forest reserves indiscriminately. It cannot. To grant a lease and grant a forest entry permit and grant an EPA permit for mining to take place in the forest reserves is largely regulated by Act 703 and the enabling laws of the Forestry Commission and the EPA.
Now, and how do you measure progress in this fight against illegal mining? Because you've been consistently saying that you've made some progress, also admitting that there's quite a lot of challenges and also others that you have to deal with. So what are the parameters that you use in measuring the progress in this fight against illegal mining?
Well, multiple reports from the Inspectorate Division of the Minerals Commission. That's very useful, very, very important. Reports from the security agencies, Operation Halt, and the reports they bring to my desk. Reports from unorthodox sources, civil society organizations, media people like you, and so on and so forth. Field inspection, and so on and so forth. Of course, I hear people talk about the color of the river bodies of our country. That is a legitimate point to make. But the truth also is that the scientists have told us, have indicated to us, that even if you were to stop all forms of mining or any other activities on the river bodies of our country, you will need a considerable period of time for the river body to organically restore its color and restore its integrity.
And we saw that after 2017, 2018, when there was the ban. We saw it. The water bodies became cleaner. At least we saw a number of them. You also went to some of them, fetched some of the water, showed that it was clean. So it can be done, and it is possible.
It is being done. It's been done, as I said to you, it's been done. A lot of measures have been put in place, and we are pursuing the measures.
The president put his presidency on the line right from the beginning of his presidency. That if he fails, in fact, this commitment to fight illegal mining, over the period, you say some successes have been chalked, and there is a lot more that has to be done. Some say the president has failed, and even this commitment to put his presidency on the line is one that he only made as a statement and not any form of commitment. Other than that, he should have resigned by now. What's your take on that?
Well, first of all, I don't know your interpretation of the president putting his presidency on the line. But most respectfully, what that simply meant, or what it can only mean, is that he was prepared, for want of a better expression, if you allow me to use this expression, he was prepared to damn the consequences and proceed with the fight. And as a matter of fact, this was a time when the president was being threatened by electorates in mining constituencies, that if he did not stop the measures he was pursuing, they were going to vote against him and his party. And he said, I'm going to put my presidency on the line. I'm going to put my presidency on the line means that come what may, I'm going to move forward with the measures I'm pursuing because they are in the interest of our country.
Was he really committed to this?
He was absolutely committed to that. He paid for it in the elections of 2020. He lost in almost all the mining communities in our country.
Was that why you relaxed the measures?
No, but
that led to the influx.
Which of the measures have been relaxed? Name one.
Illegal mining. After the ban,
one measure.
After the ban, we've seen an increase in illegal miners, and you talked about it as well. After the ban, at least, there should be measures in place to sustain the gains that were made.
Yeah, but
the gains have retrogressed over the period.
There are measures in place, and those measures are being pursued and being pursued vigorously. First of all, let me clarify the misconception about the president putting his presidency on the line. Putting his presidency on the line means he's going to grit his teeth. He's going to stiffen his spine and move through with his measures, regardless of the consequences it will have on his presidency. Even if he was to lose his presidency in the ensuing elections or in the upcoming election, the elections which was to come up, which was the 2020 elections, and he paid for it. He lost almost all the mining constituencies in our country, with the exception of Etakwa in Suem, where he won marginally. He lost all the mining constituencies of our country. So the president meant it when he said he was putting his presidency on the line, and he still means it. And ever since, he has continued through the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources to pursue the measures which will help us come to grips with the issue of illegal mining activities in our country. Almost all the measures are still being pursued. The soldiers are out there. I get lambasted every day that people's excavators are being burnt. And as I said to you, a week ago, there was a clash between forest guards and illegal mining operators in a particular forest reserve. So by no stretch, under any stretch of imagination, the measures which are being pursued have not been relaxed. On the contrary, the measures have been enhanced. We are increasing our measures, we are increasing the enforcement mechanism, we are increasing the reformative arrangements we have, and we are pursuing all the measures which are required to get us to come to grips with the issue of illegal mining activities in our country. And so the president has been very reliable, has been very credible, and has stuck to all the measures he's put in place to deal with illegal mining activities. There's no question about that.
You haven't relaxed it because you need money to finance your campaign.
From where? Money from where?
From these illegal small-scale miners.
Well, to finance whose campaign? MPP's campaign?
They finance, at least there's been reports by the CDD that some of these illegal miners finance the campaigns of political parties in this country.
Really? I'm unaware of that. And how does that work? The illegal miners will contribute to the campaign's accounts or contribute to their fundraising measures or how? How does that work?
When they give you money, and then even the members of parliament, because this is not a national fight. It's supposed to be led, at least, decentralize the process, is it not? But then you see a very lax approach by some persons who are at the various levels of accountability because of the benefits they are getting from this legal management. You don't know about it?
Well, I wouldn't pretend to be naive or ignorant of the tendency for criminal cartels and criminal operatives in any form or shape, whether in the drug industry, in the cocoa industry, or in the mining industry, or what have you, to corrupt officials and corrupt authorities. I will never pretend that that is not possible. That is possible. But when that happens, that is illegal, that is unlawful, that is wrong, and that has to be dealt with. And any government or any official worth his salt should never lower himself or herself so as to allow an illegal mining operator to corrupt the person. And so we keep an eye on all of those things. And if you say that illegal mining operators will contribute to the campaign of political parties, I understood it to mean that they will contribute officially to the centralized fundraising portfolio of various political parties. If it is about corrupting individual officials, corrupting a minister, corrupting a deputy minister, or corrupting a security officer, that is possible. But that should not be countenanced. That should not be countenanced in any form or shape.
I would want to thank you very much for coming, and I know you would have to get in there unless you have some.
You got a budget interview now for illegal mining. Oh, well and good. But I've enjoyed it thoroughly. Indeed. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. Indeed. We should find time and talk a lot more about these things.
Indeed.
Okay.
Indeed.
All right, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much. He's the Member of Parliament for the Damongo constituency. He is the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, and then also a number of committees in Parliament. Samuel Jinapor there. Are you also live here on the live coverage of the 2024 budget, on the budget presentation of the Finance Minister and 2024 fiscal document. You're still live here on 3FM 92.7, also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, and DSTV channel 279 all across the world on 3news.com. And join us and let's have a conversation. Shortly, the Finance Minister will be presenting this budget before the House. The businesses of the House have started already, and we will get into all the issues and the concerns are happening. So live here on TV3. And Dr. Stephen Amoah is the Member of Parliament for the Nhyaiso constituency, is a Deputy Trade and Industry Minister. Dr. Stephen Amoah, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.